I'm going to show you the 3 most basic winch techniques that you should know if you've got a winch on the front of your four-wheel drive. Let's get into it. Now, I don't know if this is you, but I see a lot of people out on the trails and they've got a really well kitted out four-wheel drive that's got a winch on the front of it, but they don't really know how to use it. They kind of know how to use the remote control and turn it on. They might have all of the gear. Some of them don't even have the gear properly. They just have a winch rope. Whatever the case may be, you do need to know these 3 basic techniques because they're the 3 that are most commonly by far used out there on the trails. The first is what we call a single line winch pull, and it's single line because you've got a single line coming from the winch. Now that'll start making sense further on in the video and you'll see why we define it that way. Now this is what you're going to use if you're bogged, but you don't need a lot of winching power. You do need some help just to get the vehicle up a rock step or through a little bit of an obstacle. Maybe you're stuck in mud and you just need a little bit of assistance. You don't want to use this winching recovery when you're bogged up to the chassis in mud or you're really going to be doing a heavy winch. There's a couple of reasons for that. You see, when a winch is set up this way, unless you've got all the winch line out, it's not going to be pulling at its maximum pull loading. And the reason is, on the winch drum, you've got all those layers of rope. And the further from the center those layers of rope are, the less strength or power the winch will have. In this scenario, we don't have a huge amount of rope out, so that winch is not going to work at its greatest capacity. That's one of the reasons we want to use this in light winching applications. Now the next thing that can be a disadvantage, not always, but it can be, is that in this configuration the winch is relatively fast compared to the next configuration that I'm going to show you. Now that can mean that not only is the winch not as powerful as it could be, it also can mean that you're going through the obstacle faster than you'd like. So you don't have enough time to either steer the vehicle or correct the vehicle, or you just want to make those gentle little considerations. Oh, that's good. Ooh, slow down. You know, because in a winching scenario, we want to keep it slow, we want to keep it safe, we want to keep it controlled. So how do you set up for a single line winch pull? Well, you're going to get your winch controller out, you're going to turn your winch on. Whether you've got isolators in this vehicle, I've got an isolator under the bonnet and I've got an isolator on the front of the winch. Now we've got the winch engaged and we let the rope out. Now at the end of the winch rope, we're going to have a soft shackle, and that's going to join us to our tree trunk protector, or tree saver as some of you call it. Why we use a tree saver or tree trunk protector is because we don't want to damage the environment. Never, please, don't ever wrap your winch rope around a tree and start ring barking the tree. You might be okay, but if everybody starts doing it, we see the trees getting damaged and then they pass away and they die and we've got to have a funeral, and it gets sad, and I don't like being sad. Maybe you like being sad. Sorry, I got off track there. All right, so that's how you set up a single winch line. The second method we've got here is what we call a double line winch pull, and it's double line because we've got a line coming from the winch and the second line going around the pulley block and going back to the vehicle. It basically doubles the amount of power that the winch generates, and it does that in 2 different ways. The first way is the fact that we've increased the number of lines. That doubles the winching power. But the second way is because the winch rope is now closer to the center of the winch drum, it's a shorter lever, which means that it can pull harder, and so it makes it more effective. Now, in most of your heavy winching applications, this is an excellent method to be using. All right, let's just run through how you rig up a double line winch pull. Now the 3 methods I'm showing you in this video are just the basics. There's a whole heap more to winching your vehicle that an advanced four-wheel driver should know. So if you need to get hold of that information, I'm going to be doing some more videos on my channel in due course to start teaching you some of those methods. All right, so at this end, it's much the same as the single line winch pull. We've got a tree trunk protector, a soft shackle, but we've taken the winch hook back down that end, so we've added in one of these recovery rings, and that allows the rope to safely turn around and head back down there. Now down this end, we've got our hook again, and we've got a soft shackle, and then what we've got is a bridle. This is a device that allows us to use the 2 front recovery points on the vehicle. So the bridle is coming back to a soft shackle connected to that recovery point and that recovery point. So now when we start winching and we're using a lot of force, the winch and both these recovery points is pulling the vehicle. So that means that we're spreading the recovery load not only over the appropriate recovery points, but also over the winch. So by having those 3 points pulling the vehicle, we now have a really good chance of getting the vehicle out of the bog. So the third technique that you should be aware of before you head out four-wheel driving is what we call a winch redirect. So we've taken the winch rope and we've redirected it over to that tree there. Now, why would you want to know this technique? Well, let's just imagine there's the trail heading off up there. There's no trees to winch off. But I know that I want to winch on this line because maybe I'm winching up through a rut, and if I get pulled into the rut, or you know, it could be any number of different scenarios, but at the end of the day, you know that you want to winch straight up the trail. So you set up a winch redirect like this. So you do need a little bit more gear. You need to have some soft shackles here. I've got the bridle that I was using in the previous setup. I've got that in place here, and a tree trunk protector so that I can get the rope pulley out here into the middle of the winch, and then over there I've got a soft shackle and I've got a utility rope. But I'm going to show you something I've done on the back of that utility rope so I don't damage the tree. So here's one of the things you do need to be aware of with this current setup. We've gone back to a single line winch pull, so we've only got that amount of power coming out of the winch. It might be enough for the situation you're in, but you can rig this as a double line winch pull. But that's not what I'm going to show you in this video. I'm just making you aware of that. All right, let's head over here and see what I've done with the tree. So as I said earlier, you don't want to be damaging trees. Now, this utility rope is relatively thick and it's got this sheath on it. So the chances are it's going to be okay on a nice big tree like this, but you know, you just want to play it safe. So this is a trick that you can use to help spread the load on the tree. Is just get some timber, it could be some sticks, it could be, you know, anything that you have that you can put through the rope to spread the load on the trunk of the tree so you don't hurt the tree. So before you head out on your next four-wheel drive trip, if you're not already competent in these 3 methods of winch recovery, make sure you go and get some training. And remember, single line winch pull, double line winch pull, and a winch redirect. They're going to be a great starting point. But obviously there's a whole heap of other winching techniques that can be used out there on the trails. So I'm going to start teaching some of those in upcoming videos. I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails.